Both before and I'm sure the one after me will also be very informative. I want to talk with you this evening about text analytics for finance. My background is in natural language processing and text analytics. Before Bloomberg, I was at Yahoo, before that at AT&T Research, before that in academia. What I want to talk with you tonight about is how text analytics for finance is different from natural language processing in other areas, and some of the things that we at Bloomberg are doing in this space. So, at Bloomberg, our goal is to read the world in order to provide actionable insights to decision makers in finance, law, government, and other areas. You can see some of the actionable insights that we generate at Bloomberg.com. If you're a terminal subscriber, of course, you have access to way more in there, including shipping data, by the way, and satellite data. And the whole company started with tickers. Go down to Wall Street, get the end-of-day prices before the other guy on the cyclist literally cycles them back. You should read Bloomberg's autobiography, and put them in a computer form so that other people can get the information quicker, because in finance, the sooner you get correct information, the faster you can take action, and that's alpha. That's what makes your money. That's what allows you to retire eventually. So over time, right, Bloomberg started to read more information. And this information, unlike the ticker plant information, unlike satellite information, is unstructured. Company filings, social media, websites, news, mails and chats, survey data, and all sorts of other kinds of unstructured data, which we have to refine in order to construct the actionable insights to allow our customers to make decisions. So what I want to do now is show you just a couple of examples of these. Some of the kinds of things that we do at Bloomberg in terms of text analytics. We enrich documents that we present to our users. So we do entity extraction and linking, topic categorization, sentiment analysis, and novelty detection on all kinds of news data. We sell this in the terminal and as feeds. We extract structured data from text. This is converting unstructured data into structured data to allow us, for example, to model supply chain information. We generate language for our users. We do summarization, automated story authoring, and alerts. I'm just going to tell the guy in the back that I'm getting that buzzy echo again. And we understand language provided by our users, email, search queries, and natural language questions. So now you can go into the terminal and say, tell me the price of IBM and show me the stock chart for 6 months ago, and you will see those things. The price of IBM, that's ambiguous 6 months ago or today, and the stock chart for 6 months ago. Why do we do this? Because events that occur in unstructured data move markets. So what you see here is an SEC announcement about one of the top investment banks in 2010. The SEC announcement, in case you can't see the times here, came out at about 10:37. At around 10:38 was the first Bloomberg headline, because we're faster at reading the news, and SEC filings. At around 10:39 was the New York Times story. The distance between 10:38 and 10:39 was about 3% in the stock price. The distance between the SEC headline and 10:55, 20 minutes later, was a 12% absolute difference in the stock price. It's really critical for us and for our clients that we're the first and that we're right. So trends provide actionable intelligence, but they also provide insight. One of the things that we do is try to read a lot of social media. Why social media? Because the SEC has declared that Twitter, in particular, can be used to provide official company announcements. So we read social media all day, every day, a big data funnel, a lot of analytics. We extract entities, we extract sentiment, we identify topics. We marry this with readership info and info from our own newsroom. So you can see, for example, if a company's price has changed, what's the volume of the change, what's the sentiment on social media, what's the volume of the discussion on social media, how is that aligned with what people are reading? And if you click through, you can get more derived information to provide additional color. So here you can see the company's stock price and the trading volume. And again, this is over days at this point. And below it, you can see the Twitter volume and sentiment. Is it positive or negative? And in US finance, green is positive, red is negative. In China, it's the opposite. And you can see critical points as headlines that you can click through to see. So if you were a money manager who had a client who was invested in this company, you could see that it was trending on social media. You could click through immediately to see if this trend was large or small, and decide within a minute, which is realistically how long you have, whether to call up your client or chat with them or let the information alone. So Text analytics feeds insights that provide decision-making points of time, that provide additional derived data, and that provide added color. We have to do this in the presence of significant differences from other kinds of NLP or text analytics in other areas. For example, when I was at AT&T, we did a lot of NLP for conversational systems, and we did a lot of text analytics to identify Net Promoter Score. How likely is my friend or family to recommend AT&T to a friend? At Bloomberg, we're not trying to identify Net Promoter Score. We're trying to really understand what's going on so that someone else can decide whether they should buy or sell this company. So here are 3 key challenges that we face that would be present to a greater or lesser extent in any other highly vertical industry. The first is financial language, idiomatic language. The second is the need for speed. Remember, I said a minute. And the third is balancing precision and recall. So in terms of financial language, our primary goal is to identify the entities, topics, sectors, subsectors that any text artifact is about. And it really matters. You can see here some in the green corner are stocks. I wasn't a finance person before I came here. I'm still learning it. The increasing divergence between global equity market performance and bond markets has raised questions as to whom is right. Well, it raises a question as to what they're talking about in my head, but I'm learning, and the charts down there help me. Once I learn to understand that, I can move on to this kind of Twitter message. Whitbread PLC initiated by Beaufort Securities that sells something, something. Maybe someday I'll be able to understand those too. However, our text analytics engines can understand those, including the prices, the cash tags, and all the other information, and put them into a form where people can take action immediately. There is no on-the-market generic text analytics platform that can handle this type of language. No way. Of course, financial information isn't just present in text, it's also present in tables and plots and charts. At Bloomberg, we're working on something called natural document understanding, which is a document format or a way of processing documents where the human can read the document easily and the computer can also process and understand the document easily. To do that, we're using best-in-class deep learning for both text analytics and computer vision, which is how we would handle a table or a chart like this. And there's a paper from this year that you can take a look at if you're interested. Now to the need for speed. You saw that chart earlier with the difference between 1038 and 1039 and 1055. Here is a story that happened where some investment firm had an article about like all the telecommunications companies reports were out except T-Mobile's and they were all down. What about T-Mobile? So then this guy says, I guess we'll find out. Well, why does he matter? CEO. So then what happened is the time between when he tweeted that and approximately 2 hours later, the stock price jumped 1.46%. And the time between when he tweeted that and when it appeared in the Bloomberg is this time interval here. You may think, oh, that's a fraction of 1.46%, that's 1/3%, who cares? But at volume, that matters a lot. And this was the difference, this was about a 5-minute difference. And it's shorter now than it was. And we also had a news article out at the same time, within a minute of that, that said, Jean Legers embeds the, so just in case you're not clear on who Jean Legers is and everything, and this kind of article we can now automatically generate. So you can get this with no human intervention within 2 minutes, and then within 5 minutes, a human journalist can come along and add color. Speed is also important when you think about the volume of content that we're processing. News articles from every publisher on the planet, as well as 500 million tweets in any given time. Jean Legers is in there somewhere. Only some of those tweets are financially relevant, so we have a funnel. Some of those tweets that are determined to be relevant go directly to our news desk for story authoring. Some of them go into a collection of systems, which are content-based, rule-based, topic modeling-based, statistical-based, and they feed over 100 different screens within the Bloomberg terminal, which provide company trend information, company tweet information, sentiment alerts, tweets on mergers, tweets by the President of the United States, et cetera, et cetera. All of this available to a client who is typically looking at 16 of these windows at any given time for them to make decisions very rapidly. Now we come to the need for precision and balancing precision and recall. This story happened, how many of you have heard this story before? This happened last year. Okay, so Bill O'Reilly said something, and there's a small and innocent company called O'Reilly Auto Parts somewhere in the Midwest, and a bunch of generic text analytics engines linked Bill O'Reilly to O'Reilly Auto Parts. And the O'Reilly Auto Parts stock dropped, and then it climbed, none of which had anything to do with them or the quality of their business, but everything to do with Bill O'Reilly. So at Bloomberg, this was not Bloomberg's text analytics engine, by the way, that did this, because at Bloomberg, we want to be certain to be right. We are aware that every decision maker in finance has access to Bloomberg information at one level or another. And we are aware that people's lives and livelihoods depend on the correctness and the quality of our content. So we pay very careful attention to applications where we need to be precision-oriented, like this one, and applications where we can be more recall-oriented and give noisier information. And I just want to pause here and give a shout-out to CPEDS, the Community Principles for Ethical Data Science, that Bloomberg is sponsoring along with Bright Hive and Data for Democracy. It really does matter, the output of your machine learning algorithms. It matters what you get wrong, and it matters what you never see. So when we have a need for a very high precision workflow, but we can sacrifice a little time, we can take advantage of what people have started to call hybrid workflow, and really means human in the loop. So we can use humans in the loop, and we do very often, to add data for models to account for changes in the world, new companies, new people, new entities entering the world, new events, and new relationships. These humans can ameliorate a lack of recall or precision and provide important training data, and there really is a lot more work needed on how to manage hybrid workflow in such a way that clients benefit and the humans who are doing the work can have a productive and satisfying work life. So a lot of what my work is focused on right now is hybrid workflow and finding ways where we can optimize our systems without really turning off the employees that are feeding those systems. It should be mutually beneficial. So if any of this sounds like fun, we're hiring. You can find out about CPEDS at this website, and you can find out about some of our other Tech at Bloomberg activities at Tech at Bloomberg. And I should say that my Twitter handle is not at Bloomberg, I wish. But you should follow Tech at Bloomberg, where you'll find announcements about many other events that happen here, like this one. And my Twitter handle is Amanda Stent. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amanda. This is something that people don't always know about Bloomberg, how, for all of us who celebrate the New York tech community and the startup community, but Bloomberg is the quintessential tech startup, except it started a long time ago, and it's fundamentally a technical company and a data company. And I'm not just saying that because you guys are giving us food, but
big part of it, though, right?
no, I think it's remarkable. Full disclosure, I worked here for 4 years, and I was really quite impressed. Anyway, how does the handoff work between the machine and the humans? You mentioned the human in the loop. How does that work practically?
Yeah. So when you have, every one of our machine learning based applications has a different trade-off between precision, recall, and speed. And it's really not optimize F all the time or optimize latency all the time. It's a different trade-off for each one. When we have time or offline, if necessary due to latency constraints, we use an assortment of active learning methods, and we have a team of data scientists, some of them with very specialized expertise in finance, and some of them with more generic expertise, who help us to label data, who help us to design the algorithms, who provide subject matter expertise, so that we can continually improve all of our systems. And that's something that historically has been done mostly with rule-based systems, but today we do it with deep learning and a lot of decision trees. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if you can talk about it, but how does a data pipeline work at Bloomberg? I mean, is it meaning what do you have in the back end?
I wouldn't say that there's one data pipeline. Nobody has told me the actual number. I've heard numbers from between 15 and 40,000 individual functions inside the Bloomberg. Each of them is fed by at least one data feed, and in many cases several. So we collect, for example, government data. We collect data from websites that we scraped. We have feeds coming in from every major news publisher. So there's an assortment of different data feeds. One of the things that we're actively working on now, and Jillian and I and Gideon Mann and our colleagues are working on this, is to really create that sort of data refinery that Mark was talking about, where all the data, instead of being isolated in different functions, can be pulled together to add more context and color. And the screen that you saw with sentiment for Twitter with the stock price and volume was one such example where you can marry data and get additional insight. And one of the great things about working in finance is it is always grounded, in a sense, in dollars and cents. And in the past, what you can do now is look back, right? How were your measures of the world married to the dollars and cents? How well did they fit? And what we're trying to do is move to a world where you can predict it now, and then potentially a world where you can look a little into the future. Because that's what would really give you alpha, if you could look with some certainty a little into the future and adjust your trading strategies accordingly.
Very cool. Let's open up to questions.
Hi, great talk over here.
Okay. Hi.
I'm curious how worried you guys are about the potential manipulation. Like my thinking is like you could have a bot farm create a bunch of Twitter accounts that like manipulate the sentiment of tweets on various companies, potentially for like intentional market manipulation strategies.
Yeah, we do see this happen, and not just on social media, but of course governments have vested interests in their own numbers, and companies have vested interests in their own numbers. We do a lot of historical monitoring, so we can know how old a social media account is. We also have a very, very large collection of pieces of information about entities in the world, so we can know how closely associated a particular handle is with a decision maker or someone who's likely to be involved with that entity. And we use all of that information to prune entities that are Twitter handles, social media handles, publishers of all kinds that are likely to be less than trustworthy. And we also do alignment of that social media and other data with our ground truth, with dollars and cents, facts on the ground, supply chain, shipping information, in order to assess the trustworthiness or the reliability of any individual message. But this, of course, is something that will be ongoing work forever. It's a race between the truth tellers and the lie makers. And so it's something that we do continue to work on.
Very interesting talk. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was wondering, at the FAA, you hear that they have a dollar value ascribed to a particular life when they're thinking about improvements in the aviation industry. And clearly you hear the stories about high-frequency traders drilling through mountains to decrease the signal path for things, getting a few milliseconds here and there. How do you all do the calculus internally, determine how fast is fast enough? I mean, clearly, like you mentioned, you want it instantaneous, you want it predictive, but there's lots of dollars can be spent to kind of get those sorts of gains. Yeah. How do you determine when you've kind of reached that inflection point?
Sure. Well, there's many different clients for Bloomberg, and a law firm or a lobbyist may have a different time frame than a quant trader, to give some extremes. So some of our clients, many of our clients, just sit all day and look at the terminal, and when something happens, they go and try to scan to figure out a why, and then they talk to their clients. Others of our clients consume the data and the intelligence that we provide as feeds. So if you're a large quant firm, you might consume what we provide as feeds. And increasingly, I think that the future is even more human with machine, in the sense that there will be even more of machines consuming the vast bulk of low-level data, and humans, making the decisions, adding color, providing insight, thinking about why, until computers can finally answer why, which, good luck.
Thanks. Hi, great talk. With increasing variety and general types of alternative data, in general defined as however you want, there's incredible opportunity which people have seized upon in terms of driving alpha, but a lot of this is predicated in the expectations. So if you have a way to calculate inflation rates or whatever it might be, which you certainly can do, and you're very confident in a number, it doesn't matter if you're right, it has to do with the expectations, in this case, of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or whoever is releasing the statistic, or company earnings. So how do you think about the idea of the truth in that sense? Because it's not necessarily a truth in an absolute sense, it's relative to the expectations.
Yes, very good question. I had a summer intern last summer who's much more financially literate than I am. And he was very interested in these, what do you call them, technical indicators, the W's and the Q's and the things that look like horses. And I said, none of these are actionable. And then I realized it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether they really predict the market or not. If all of us believe they do, then they do, right? So there is definitely, I mean, it's that we like to think that the market is efficient, but in fact there are many inefficiencies, many of them predicated on our individual psychologies and our collective psychoses. So we build models at Bloomberg that are predictive, and then we constantly test them against what we find actually happening, and we are constantly adjusting them. And if you are interested, we run also a monthly meeting called BBQ for Bloomberg Quants. You can find out a lot more about our quantitative stuff there.
Not barbecue.
Barbecue?
It's not barbecue, BBQ.
What is it?
Hi, great talk. Because Bloomberg is so fast at getting this information out to the traders, do you ever find competitors using your cleverly automated articles as their own sources?
Well, that's a great question. I haven't looked into that, but I certainly could, and I don't think we would mind, right? What does sort of sometimes worry me is if the computers are going to read them and the computers are writing them, then why are we using the natural language at all? Right? If I'm going to write a story in English that a computer reads and converts back into numbers, why don't I just skip that whole step? But of course, humans are always involved. So if somebody wants to use our numbers and our automatically generated stories and our manually generated stories, which are frankly much more informative, then they are welcome to do that.
Great, one last one maybe over there.
Question I had with regards to the NLP is, a lot of this is with regards to Twitter and sentiment, and of course, corporations have their own way of giving out sentiment in their quarterly calls. Mm-hmm. Can you describe any of the process that you guys have in place to capture, get that data out, as well as capturing the sentiment around that, given the nuances of the financial languages, as corporate speak and lawyers speak, presents challenges in how to interpret that?
Yeah. I think we have white papers about our sentiment feed and our sentiment analysis models. It's not really a part of the company that I work with, but it's a set of statistical models which we continually adapt over time. So we have backfill. They're less than 100% accurate because people do rely on the expectation of the accuracy in those signals in their own trading models. They are aspect-oriented and not aspect-oriented, meaning sometimes there is stuff that's relevant to a particular entity, like a company, and sometimes there is not. And we're always working to improve them, not just on text, but on the speech, on the video. I'll close with a little story, if I may. When I was at Yahoo, publicly traded company, unlike Bloomberg, Marissa Mayer would have to sit up there and talk to everybody every quarter with Ken Goldman, the chief lawyer. And there was this December earnings call where she seemed uncomfortable, I guess, and people looked at her face and her posture and her speech and everything and said, oh, Yahoo must be doing badly, so they sold it. And less than 24 hours after that, she had her twins. And Yahoo actually had a very good quarter. It was just that she was, uncomfortable. So we can't always predict based on the non-linguistic or even the linguistic features of an earnings call or an earnings release. What we can do is look for signals that are probabilistic and be sure that we provide those probabilities and the confidence in any explanation that we can along with them. So the Bloomberg sentiment feed is not just positive or negative, I like it or it's buy or sell, and it's with probability so that you can use those in your own models.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Yeah.